Tonight we're talking development in rugby, and we've roped in two gentlemen who are experts on the development of rugby players. I'm joined by Chris Litau, who's the founder of the Soweto Rugby Academy, and Liso Langman, who is a development consultant. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Chris, let's start with you. I suppose when we talk about development now, it's about trying to find the next Makazola Mapimpi, because he was a guy who slipped through all the nets that South African rugby has to offer. He made it to the highest level, and he's become a bona fide superstar. How do we go about finding the next Makazola Mapimpi?
I would like to say thank for having me. Look, where we come from Soweto, where there's no resources, where there's no field for them to train. We saw the gap between the schools, the middle schools and the local schools, that there's a huge gap when it comes to rugby development. That's why we came in and saw a lot of boys who willing to play and love the game at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So far, we've seen the massive changes through the academics, because we also assist them in the academics. Because if you can look at the academics, they're lacking, and the sports, they're lacking. So we try to balance those two things to make them to be able to get to a level where they should be. Right. So now we've seen girls are coming, flocking in, and having fun and working very hard. And I would say to you, we're gonna produce the next Makazola Mapimpi.
Yeah, Liso, I suppose a lot of people will say, if you don't go to the right schools in the rugby circles, you're never going to get noticed. Is that correct? Is it a problem that talented youngsters don't get noticed?
So you have to look at it from just the basic numbers we've got already, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got X number of Craven League players coming from a certain group of schools, and you can almost predict the year before who those schools are going to be. My question is, if Soweto is the biggest township in the country, how are we not producing at least 20% of those? Yeah. So we need to start looking into those numbers and understanding what the deficit is in those smaller schools and those township schools and those township academies. For this, in this instance, the Soweto Schools Rugby Academy, that Chris has come up with this idea where we're going to give these guys a full package where they're going to be put through some sort of high-performance coaching, similar to what they would get there. But up until we've got those relationships between the two departments, we're always going to see a deficit where you need to go to a certain school, or you need to bloom at a certain time around certain coaches. We're celebrating the Siya Kolisi story now, which is great, but I argue there is about 1,000 Siya Kolisis we don't see by virtue of where they go to school. And there's also bureaucracies between certain schools. So I remember working in the development schools, in inverted commas, where I would take players we've developed from that school to a so-called bigger school for an opportunity, and you'd fight battles within the school you're in. I remember being asked by a headmaster at a development school, where's your loyalty? And to that I answered, my loyalty is to the player. We're trying to give this guy the best opportunities, but he's not able to get these opportunities by virtue of sometimes even us coaches in the development ranks holding on to them. So it's finding a collaboration that works. I understand the chat of the economy and there not being that much money, but Soweto is a powerhouse in terms of the economics. So why aren't we talking to black business in Soweto and we're saying to them, okay, let's build a high-performance center, let's use the technology we've got tech brands in the country, and let's give these guys some sort of hub where they can come and access this information, which I think is the development gap we're not seeing. There's an information gap just on basic know-how between a primary school in the suburbs and a primary school in the township. This is a reality. By virtue of the two different teachers having gone through two different schooling systems as themselves, you might find the coach in the township school coaching the way he was coached, when the primary school in the suburbs is exposed to Investec Rugby Academy, exposed to so many different programs, initiatives that are able to upskill them. So there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen at some stage.
Absolutely. And Chris, Siya Kolisi made a very important point, that when you pluck a youngster out of his environment, you've got to go back and take care of that environment, because you can't let there be a vacuum there, because he did come from somewhere. He wasn't just, fell in there, but he's now been plucked out of the environment. And Siya made the point that that whoever takes the youngster needs to give back. Are you seeing that there is a will for, like, say, for instance, Kes or St. John's to want to go back and not just get what they need, but also give back?
100%. For me, I think it's very important for them to come down to, I think, where there's a need, to come and give support, give programs that will help these kids. maybe rugby boots, because some of them, they do play without rugby boots. And it becomes a battle whereby you have to play, you have to change jerseys so you can be able to go quick on the field. So I think it's very, very important for schools like Cares, St. John to come down and, give that support to the schools and what we do at the ground.
I mean, we haven't tapped the potential of this country by a long shot. Is enough been done that we haven't seen it in Super Rugby? We haven't seen it at Currie Cup level yet. Liso, how do we address the imbalance? Because we, as rugby consumers, have been told for years and years that there aren't enough players. But clearly that argument doesn't hold any water at all.
Look, again, we were saying there's not enough players, and you asked the question preceding this one, are the big schools coming back and ploughing in? I think the biggest misconception we're seeing now is we're coming to recruit the talent. So if player X is developed in Soweto, it's very convenient for us as school Y to just come in, pick him up and put him into the new program. And at times we found in some of these schools, even in those programs, there isn't enough integration with the athlete itself.
Yeah.
So you're taking myself out of a school in Soweto and you're putting me in school Y, and you haven't integrated me to the way that they do things in the school. So even at that level, there's disparities. So up until we're going to have a genuine conversation where the school is going to avail a sports scientist, or the school is going to avail a forwards conditioning coach, or just something that's going to give pointed knowledge to the township school, then we're not really developing. And this is not to say that there aren't initiatives from the governments that have tried this. I'm just saying there's still an information gap between the two, and we need to upskill the people on the other end to be able to produce these players sustainably, not just for recruitment's sake. Because if I develop 20 players and I push them off to the bigger schools, the school they came from originally gets no credit for it.
Exactly.
There's no sponsorship pool for them. There's no branding. There's nothing in it for them. And at that stage, you can understand and sympathize with those people when they say, but we don't want to let go of this talent because we're trying to build. So up until there's an honest conversation where we're really moving the know-how, it's easy to move the kid. Like, that's one player per area. I'm saying bring a coach to the area. Create a transport link between the areas where the guys have got access to the facilities, and maybe then we'll get somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think the tide is turning. I think the right noises have been made. Makazola Mapimpi, Sio Kolisi, these are guys that are going to take that forward. We've already seen that happening. Soweto Rugby Academy having their prize giving this weekend. Big time for the organisation. We wish you best of luck, Liso. Chris, thanks for coming in and helping to, move the conversation forward. We want to have you back in the future as this story develops. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Right, well, that's where we're going to have to leave it for tonight here on The Full View for your sport. Thanks very much for joining us. For myself and all the team, good night. Take care.